Hey guys, I'm Evan Griggs with Minnesota Trout in the Classroom. Today, I'm going to teach you about one of my favorite things in the whole world, and that's fly fishing. You've probably never heard of fly fishing, so we're going to start from the very basics. It is not fishing for flies. It is using lures that look like flies. They can be really small to imitate things that trout might eat, or they can be really big, things that even sharks could eat. In fly fishing, we use special kind of line that's really thick on our reels. These are different sizes of reels for different sized fish and flies. Our lines are thicker on our heavier reels for bigger fish and thinner on our reels for smaller fish. Our rods in fly fishing are very long. This is only one part of a very long fly rod. These rods are kind of like catapults, and they're very flexible, and they shoot our flies very far out into the water. The whole point of using flies is to imitate the food that fish actually like to eat. It can be something that looks like a minnow, or that could look like a bug. We try to cover as many different types of food sources that fish eat, as well as types of fish. We can fish for everything from sunnies all the way to mako sharks. We're also going to learn how to tie one of these flies. Actually, a couple of these flies, because you guys are so awesome. One pattern we're going to tie is called the woolly bugger. Hands down, one of the best flies ever created. Another one is called the San Juan worm, because fish love eating worms. Let's get started. Our first fly is going to be the San Juan worm. This fly imitates an aquatic worm or an earthworm that happens to fall into the water. Fish go nuts for this fly, and I think you're going to really like tying it. But before we start tying it, I want to teach you a little more about the tools we use, as well as parts of hooks and even some of the materials. First off, let's learn about our tools. The thing that holds your hook is called a vise. You operate the vise by moving the lever up or down to close the jaws. When you put in your hook, just pull that lever down, put the hook in the jaws, and lift the lever up. Easy as pie. Some other equipment that you're going to need is a bobbin with thread, a bobbin threader, and a handy dandy pair of scissors. Parts of the hook. When you look at this very end of the hook, the pointy part, we call that the point. The curvy part we call the curve or the bend. The straight part on the top we call the shank, and the round part right on the front of the hook, we call that the eye. There's two hard parts in fly tying. First hard part is getting your thread on the hook. Second hard part is getting your thread off the hook. I'll show you an easy peasy way to get your thread on the hook though. What we're going to do is make an okie dokie symbol, pinching your bobbin where all the tubes meet in the middle. Make another okie dokie symbol, pinching your thread about an inch away from the tube of the bobbin. Now, place that thread in the middle of your hook shank, kind of making an X shape. We're going to wrap 4 times forward towards the eye, then 4 times back over what we just did. And voila, it hangs like magic. Next thing, you might see some extra thread that isn't connected to your bobbin anymore. Go ahead and cut that off, nice and close. Now it's the easy part. We're going to cover up the whole shank. Once you run out of thread, lightly pull down with your bobbin hand. Keep wrapping, covering up this hook shank so we don't see very much metal poking through. Good. Once you are done covering up your shank, we're going to leave your thread hanging at the bend of the hook. For our material to make the San Juan worm, all we use is a piece of pink chenille. It can be really any kind of chenille, or color, or size. I like pink chenille. Chenille is a type of fabric, or kind of like a pipe cleaner without the wire in the middle of it. This is going to turn into the body of our worm. What I like to do is pinch it in the middle and place it on top of our hook shank. Now we're going to switch hands, pinching that chenille onto the hook, wrap in just one spot, nice and tight so that chenille rests on top of the hook. Slowly wrap forward. These wraps kind of make the segmented body of a worm. Once we get to the hook eye, we're going to wrap in one spot a whole bunch of times again. There you go. Here comes hard part number 2. Notice I switched hands. I was holding it in my right hand. Now I'm holding my bobbin in my left hand, and it's straight towards my chest. Now we're going to use our handy dandy pointer finger, place it in the middle of our thread, wrap that thread over your nail, and move it. Set your nail right on top of that hook eye, and very gently slide that thread behind the hook eye. What this is called is a half hitch knot. If we just cut our thread without doing these knots, our fly would go and it would be really sad. By tying these knots, it ensures that everything stays in place where we not want it. So again, finger in the middle of the thread, wrap it over your nail, slide it to the eye, and pull tight. So again, finger in the middle of the thread, wrap it over your nail, slide it to the eye, and pull tight. Do that 3 to 4 times. Cut your thread right next to the hook, and voila, we have ourselves a San Juan worm. Good work, everyone. Here we go for the next level. This fly is called the Marabou Bugger. Now the Marabou Bugger imitates a lot of different things. It could be a minnow, it could be a larger aquatic insect, a leech. We don't really know, but fish love it. So let's get started. First thing we need to do is to put our hook into the vise. See the tip of our jaws? We'll clamp it in right at where the bend turns into the point. Shank parallel with the table again. If your hook looks like that, you're ready to go. This fly sinks to the bottom of the stream or lake wherever you're fishing, so we need to add a little weight to it. To do that, we have some non-lead wire. Before we put any thread on, we need to put on our wire. What I like to do is press it up against the side of our hook shank, and we're going to wrap it forward towards the eye, nice and close together. We want to get all the wire on there, and that'll help it sink straight down to the bottom. If you have any gaps or anything, we just press it together And you might have some little tag ends poking up on the start or the end. You can just smooth those out, press them in. There. Now you might notice your wire moves around on your hook. So now we can push that a little towards the middle, and we're going to start our thread again right behind our wire. Make your X, wrap forward 4 times, 4 more times over what you just did, locked on. Snip the excess. Now go ahead and make some loose wraps over that pile of wire. You don't have to cover it up perfectly, we just need enough to hold it into place. Once you get to the hook eye, make a nice pile up in front, again, to kind of hold it in place. Once you're covered up, leave your thread hanging at the bend, and we'll get on some of our first materials here. First thing we need to do is to make a tail for our minnow. And we don't use a fish tail, we use a feather. So this is called a marabou feather. It's a down feather from a turkey. I like to say they're turkey butt feathers. What we're going to do is smoosh all those tips together, and we want them to measure about the length of our hook. That's pretty good there. So now we're going to switch hands, pinch it to the top of our hook, wrap it in place really good, right in one spot. Once that's locked down, you can kind of wrap up to the back of the wire and back down to the bend. You'll notice we have a bunch of extra stuff up here. Go ahead and give that a haircut. Then we'll cover up all these ends with thread. Awesome. All right. Now we'll leave our thread at the bend. We're going to add our next material. This is another long piece of chenille. Notice this chenille is bright green, a little bit thicker than the stuff we used for the San Juan worm. We want to have a little bit bigger body for this fly to imitate a minnow. All right, so notice how I'm pinching just a very little tip, and there's a long bit of extra stuff hanging off the back. I want that long extra stuff to hang out with the tail, and I want that little bit to go on top of the hook. Once you're pinching it to the top of the hook, wrap it down so it's good and secure, just like so. Now we're going to move our thread up to behind the hook eye. And leave it hanging there. Here we go. This is the cool part. Use your hands, get the marabou feathers away from your chenille, and wrap that chenille forward towards the hook eye, just like we did with our wire. Nice, close, tight wraps. Nice and tight, close together, all the way to the hook eye. That creates our minnow body. Once we get to the hook eye, hold it with your right hand and throw that bobbin over right behind the hook eye, just a few times to hold it into place. Once you do that, you'll notice you have some extra again. Take your scissors, cut that off nice and close. You'll have a couple of frayed ends at the end of your chenille here. So we're just going to take our thread, wrap it around in one spot a whole bunch of times, kind of cleaning up those frayed ends and creating a little minnow head. At this point, we're ready to do our knots. Switch hands, hold it towards your chest, handy dandy finger, place it in the middle of the thread, wrap over your nail, place your nail on the eye of the hook, and pull down. Do that 3 times, and you're good to go. Snippy snip. You got yourself a Marabou Bugger. Excellent work.